One of the biggest headaches for anyone taking their garden design seriously is to inherit a long, thin plot. For Elaine, her garden, south of Manchester, posed just that problem. However, although her interest in plants and gardening started in childhood, whatever plans she had to wait. For now, the garden was part of bringing up a young family, a space for play and open air. As her sons grew older and she turned towards her interest in plants, the shape of the garden began to change. Elaine never sat down to draw a great master plan. She just allowed it to evolve. And it is in wintertime that we can really trace the layout, which makes the summer garden such a delight. Now we can clearly see how the long strip is divided into a series of smaller gardens. Patios are often planned to give a vista of the garden, as if to say, what you now see is the full extent of my estate. This garden is much more secretive. The patio affords only tantalizing glimpses of what lies beyond. In fact, it is a room in its own right. A patio garden with a feeling of seclusion and intimacy. And here you can already see the careful arrangement of plants which creates harmonious grouping of colours. However, in spite of all the interest of the patio area, there is an irresistible curiosity about the garden that beckons from beyond the pergola. A few yards of path lead into a lawn area surrounded by herbaceous borders. The curved edges of the lawn give the borders varying depth, which in turn makes it easier to arrange plants of different heights. Elaine's careful thought about plant height has made the division between the lawn garden and the next room most effective. Here, the plants are tall enough to conceal what lies ahead, yet low enough to allow glimpses and arouse curiosity. The next room within the garden is like a country walk. Each step taken reveals a new scene, a new plant, a new detail. And at the end of this country walk, no one can resist lingering by the pond, maybe just to admire the perfect symmetry of a water lily. To Elaine, however, all this serenity is actually a development area. In the constantly evolving plan, the pond can look forward to a rebirth in the coming years. From this part of the garden, it is easy to guess the owner's favourite plant form. The phrase dreaming spires has surely caught something in our imagination, way beyond thoughts of a fine city like Oxford. Through the pergola and into the last garden, the most secluded of all. This was where the children once played in their own wild patch. Here you feel at the heart of the garden and can look back to the house, which now seems unobtrusive and far away. And strangely, this last part of the garden is only the halfway point. There is now the prospect of a walk back through the garden with different views and a completely different atmosphere. In fact, the garden has been planted so that the colour ranges of the flowers change according to which direction you're walking in. This is where Elaine can sit with that cup of morning coffee, or, later in the day, with that glass of something stronger, something which has prompted her family to nickname the area G&T Corner. She can sit and look with a feeling of great satisfaction and contentment over the romantic and seductive world she has created from a love of plants. Few people in Wirral would question the standing of these gardens as the most celebrated on the peninsula. And yet, Ness Gardens could so easily have become another private estate, an area of seclusion where a wealthy businessman and his family could keep the hardship of others at a comfortable arm's length. However, all this was once owned by no conventional man of means. On the contrary, Arthur Kilpin Bully, a cotton broker and later merchant, was quite extraordinary in so many ways. He stood out from the others in the way he approached everything, not through eccentricity, but through ideas and deeds which make us all look into ourselves that little bit more. In 1898, Mickwell Brow was built on a sandstone outcrop that looked out across the River Dee towards Wales. And when Mr. and Mrs. Bully moved into their newly built home, the area quickly assumed a new guise. Farm fields were converted to ornamental gardens, herbaceous borders, fruit and vegetable sections, and a large space for plant propagation. A German governess was employed for their young daughter Lois. Her parents had enjoyed continental holidays so much that they considered the command of other languages to be a valuable part of a child's education. And later, a French governess was employed to help Lois's young brother Alfred. For these children, there was the luxury of a garden with acre upon acre on which to roam, hide and build wigwams. There was also scope for total privacy on a huge scale. But their parents saw privacy as a low priority when compared with the need that surrounded them, the need of so many other people to also find free space to breathe and wander, and to enjoy some respite from the hardship and drudgery which was often their lot. And so the garden was open throughout the year for anyone to enjoy. The house, too, was a refuge for local people in need of help of all kinds, medical, legal, financial. This openness that existed in the Bully household even extended to the windows. Mickwell Brow was known as the house with no curtains. It might have seemed eccentric to some, but to wildfowlers on the nearby marsh it was a godsend, especially on evenings when the light faded quickly. The house lights were like a beacon and a compass point to guide them safely off the perilous marsh. During the First World War, there were local people who saw the lack of curtains and the presence of a German governess as a basis for intrigue and speculation. Rumours circulated that the lighted house was providing signals to German vessels in Liverpool Bay. Because of his success in the cotton trade, Arthur Bully was able to turn his interest to the collection and propagation of plants from around the world. This was during the first decades of the century, a time described as the golden age of plant collecting. He had seen that alpine plants could prosper at sea level in Spitsbergen. So he concluded there must be a wealth of plants in high ranges such as the Himalayas which could grow at ground level in Britain. Arthur Bully thus became probably the first of the great 20th century patrons of plant collecting. He made possible the expeditions of famous collectors such as George Forrest, F. Kingdom Ward and R.E. Cooper, and so the riches of flora from remote places in western China and Tibet became a world of delight for us all to share in. But for all his seeking the rare and the exotic, Arthur Bully never lost sight of the quest of ordinary people. Possession of species from far-off climes did not have to be an indulgence just for the rich. The mass selling of plants, and particularly seeds, would surely bring those species within the ownership of many more people. And with this in mind, Arthur Bully established Bees Limited, one of the country's leading plant and seed companies. Arthur Bully died in 1942, and 6 years later his daughter presented the house, gardens and surrounding farmland to the University of Liverpool. The gift was made so that the gardens would continue as a practical and fitting tribute to the memory of her father. And indeed, the gardens have continued and developed in a sympathetic vein as a centre of research and learning, the loveliest of learning gardens, as it is often described. And for the visitor, there is so much opportunity to look, learn and enjoy. But most of all, there is that rare chance to get a little closer to a remarkable man and his family. A man whose unconventional and sometimes derided respect for his fellow beings makes us reflect on real values. Values which are as timeless and unfailing as the cycle of seasons which visit this garden of his creation. Linda clasped her hands above her head and crossed her feet. It was very pleasant to know that all these bungalows were empty, that everyone was down on the beach, out of sight, out of hearing. She had the garden to herself. She was alone. Dazzling white the picotees shone, the golden-eyed marigolds glittered, the nasturtiums wreathed the veranda poles in green and gold flame. If only one had time to look at these flowers long enough. Time to get over the sense of novelty and strangeness. Time to know them. But as soon as one paused to part the petals, to discover the underside of the leaf, along came life, and one was swept away. Oh dear. Would it always be so? Was there no escape?